conference room has 47 people in it: regional directors, compliance officers, 3 people from the State Environmental Board, someone's legal team in Brooks Brothers suits taking notes like their billable hours depend on it. Pierce, my former supervisor, is 17 slides into a presentation about the company's new sustainability metrics when the revenue dashboard goes blank. Just blank, white screen, loading wheel, then nothing. Technical glitch, Pierce says, laughing it off. Give us 1 second. He clicks refresh. Nothing. The IT guy in the corner pulls out his laptop, tries to access the backend. I'm locked out, he says, his voice cracking. He's staring at his screen like it just betrayed him. Pierce's smile stays frozen. What do you mean you don't have credentials? His finger is hovering over the refresh button, like clicking it harder will somehow fix this. I mean, the host account changed. My admin access was revoked. Sometime last night, I think. The IT guy is scrolling frantically now, panic creeping into his movements. I can't get into the environmental reporting database, or the carbon offset tracker, or any of the revenue reconciliation files. Someone from the state board leans forward. Is this data we're required to submit in 9 days? She's got her pen down. Her arms are crossed. That's never a good sign. Pierce doesn't answer. He's staring at his phone now. Scrolling. His face is doing that thing where confidence turns into something that looks like motion sickness. The woman from legal clears her throat. Mr. Kensington, do we have a backup administrator? Her tone is the kind of sharp that comes right before someone starts taking notes for a lawsuit. We did, Pierce says quietly, still looking at his phone like it might have answers. When? Last week. He sets the phone down, his hand is shaking. And we didn't transfer permissions. She's leaning forward now and her pen is moving again. Pierce sets his phone down, his hand is actually shaking. We didn't think we needed to. The words come out flat, defeated. The man from the State Environmental Board stands up. He's got a tablet and a very particular expression that government regulators get when they've just realized you're wasting their time. Mr. Kensington, we came here today because your firm committed to demonstrating compliance readiness ahead of the August filing deadline. If you can't access your own data, he's packing up his tablet. That's definitely not a good sign. We can, Pierce interrupts, standing up too fast. His chair scrapes. This is just a temporary. Can you or can't you? The regulator stops packing. Waits. Silence. Pierce looks at the IT guy. The IT guy looks at his laptop screen like it might suddenly offer him salvation. It doesn't. We're working on it, Pierce finally says, and his voice has gone thin. That's not an answer. The regulator closes his tablet case with a snap. My name is Isabella. And this is exactly how we got here. Before we get into this, if you're new to Payback Office, welcome. This is where we tell true stories about workplace revenge done the right way. No screaming matches. No burned bridges you'll regret later. Just patience, precision, and consequences that land exactly where they should. We're coming up on 7,000 subscribers, and every single one of you gets why these stories matter. If you're tired of watching bad managers get promoted while good people get crushed, hit subscribe. You're in the right place. I didn't grow up wanting to be the person companies depend on. I grew up in a house where my mom taught middle school science and my dad ran a small auto repair shop. Both of them had the same philosophy. If you're going to do something, understand how it actually works, not just the surface. The whole system. Mom could explain photosynthesis to 12-year-olds in a way that made them care about chloroplasts. Dad could hear an engine knock and tell you which cylinder was misfiring. I got both their brains. By 16, I was building databases for my dad's shop, customer tracking, inventory management, parts orders that auto-populated based on seasonal trends. Nothing fancy, just stuff that worked. By 23, I had a degree in information systems and 3 certifications most people don't bother with because they're boring and hard and take forever. I'm good at boring and hard. I'm very good at infrastructure that nobody sees until it stops working. I started at Garrison and Hale Environmental Consulting 5 years ago. They're mid-sized, about 400 employees. Clients in manufacturing, energy, logistics, anyone who needs to prove they're not poisoning the planet faster than legally allowed. When I got hired, their systems were hold together with duct tape bad. Carbon tracking data lived in Excel files named things like Final V3, use this 1XLSX. Revenue reconciliation was manual. Compliance reports were built by copying and pasting from 12 different sources, and someone always forgot to update the timestamp, so it looked like we were submitting month-old data. The woman who hired me, Janet, the COO at the time, she put it simply. "Isabella, we need someone who can make this not a nightmare," she said, sliding a stack of printed spreadsheets across her desk. The pages were covered in red pen marks and sticky notes. "Build us something clean, something we can actually trust when the EPA comes knocking." So I did. I built them a cloud-based environmental data platform from the ground up. Custom architecture, real-time carbon offset tracking, automated compliance report generation, revenue reconciliation that pulled from every client account simultaneously and flagged discrepancies before they became problems. I didn't just use off-the-shelf software. I licensed server infrastructure under my own vendor account because Garrison and Hale didn't have a vendor account that could handle what I was building. I set up the hosting. I configured the security. I wrote half the integration scripts myself. It took 2 years, and when it was done, it saved them 18 hours a week in manual reporting. It cut compliance errors by 92%. It made us look like a company 3 times our size when we pitched new clients. Janet knew exactly what it was worth. "This is the backbone of our operation now," she told me once in a quarterly review. She was looking at the performance metrics I'd pulled up on her screen. "You know that, right?" I did, and she made sure I was paid accordingly. Not rich, but fairly. Respected. I remember the day we landed the Apex Industrial contract. $40 million client. The pitch meeting came down to one question from their VP of Operations. "How do you ensure real-time compliance across multiple facilities in different states?" He was leaning back in his chair, arms crossed. The kind of posture that says, "Impress me?" Our sales director, Paul, looked at me, nodded. I pulled up the dashboard on the screen, live data, color-coded, automated alerts for every facility they'd mentioned. "Like this," I said, and clicked through 3 different sites in real time. Carbon emissions, water usage, waste management, all updating live. The VP sat forward, his arms uncrossed. We had the contract in a week. Janet sent me a bottle of wine with a note. "This company runs on what you built. Don't ever forget that." I didn't. Then Janet retired, and Pierce Kensington took her job. Here's the thing most people don't understand about infrastructure. When you build something custom, when you license the hosting, configure the cloud environment, set up the vendor agreements under your own business credentials, because the company you work for doesn't have the technical capacity, you're not just an employee anymore. You're a contractor. The platform I built, it lived on server space I leased, under my LLC. Garrison and Hale paid me a monthly stipend to cover it, but the account access, the administrative control, the root permissions, those were mine. Legally, completely. Was that unusual? A little. Was it necessary? Absolutely. When I started, Garrison and Hale didn't even have a dedicated IT budget line. They couldn't have set up a vendor account if they wanted to, so I did it. And over time, it just stayed that way. No one ever questioned it. Janet understood it. She'd signed off on the structure. She knew I wasn't going to hold anything hostage. I wasn't that person. But she also knew that if I ever left, there'd be a transition process. A real one. Pierce never asked about any of that. Pierce Kensington started on a Tuesday in March. He had an MBA from somewhere expensive, a Patagonia vest he wore like armor, and a very strong opinion about optimizing operational efficiency. In his first all-hands meeting, he used the word synergy 4 times. I should have known right then. He didn't want to hear about how things worked. He wanted to hear how things could work if we just leaned into our competitive advantages and right-sized our resource allocation. That's corporate speak for "I'm going to cut budgets and call it strategy." 2 weeks in, he called me into his office. "Isabella, let's talk about your role here." He gestured to the chair across from his desk without looking up from his computer. I sat down. "Sure." He had a printed spreadsheet in front of him. I could see my name highlighted in yellow. "You're expensive," he said, finally looking at me, not unkindly, like he was presenting a fact, a problem to solve. Your salary, the vendor stipend, the infrastructure costs, you're one of the top 5 budget line items in this department. I run the systems that generate the compliance reports, I said, keeping my voice even. And the revenue tracking, and the client environmental dashboards. It's not a small job. Right, but here's my question. He leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers like he was about to reveal some great wisdom. Do we actually need someone at your level to maintain this, or could we bring in a part-time contractor, maybe offshore some of the monitoring? I blinked, stared at him for a second to see if he was joking. He wasn't. You want to offshore the environmental compliance database? I said slowly. I'm just exploring options. He waved his hand dismissively, like this was all theoretical. Pierce, the data I manage is legally sensitive. It's tied to federal reporting requirements. I leaned forward slightly. You can't just hand that to someone in a different jurisdiction and hope it stays audit-ready. He smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. I appreciate your perspective. Let me think on it. That smile told me everything I needed to know. I left that meeting with a knot in my stomach. That afternoon, I ran into Sarah from accounting in the hallway. She looked furious. Did Pierce talk to you yet? She asked, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. About what? He's cutting the professional development budget, completely. She was gripping her coffee cup so hard her knuckles were white. I had a certification course approved 3 months ago. Janet signed off on it. He just canceled it. He can do that? Apparently he can do whatever he wants. She shook her head, her voice bitter. He told me if I want the certification, I can pay for it myself and invest in my own growth. She said those last 4 words in a mocking tone, clearly imitating Pierce's corporate speak. That was April. By May, Pierce had cut the department's travel budget, switched us to cheaper coffee in the break room, and removed the annual merit increase program. We're moving to a performance-based bonus structure, he announced in a team meeting, clicking to a slide that showed a graph with arrows pointing up. You'll have the opportunity to earn more if you exceed targets. Someone in the back, David from Analytics, raised his hand. What are the targets? Still being finalized, Pierce said, not missing a beat. He smiled and moved to the next slide. They never were finalized. By June, people started leaving. First Sarah, then 2 people from the client services team, then one of the senior environmental engineers who'd been there for 8 years. Every exit interview said the same thing. Pierce was bleeding the company dry while patting himself on the back for running a tight ship. And then came the parking fees. The email hit my inbox on a Thursday afternoon. Subject line, Parking Policy Update Action Required. Effective immediately, all employees utilizing reserved garage parking will be billed $12/month through payroll deduction. Failure to opt in will result in forfeiture of reserved space privileges. This adjustment aligns with our ongoing cost optimization initiatives. It was signed by Pierce. I stared at it. $12. I pulled up the finance system. The one I'd built. The one that tracked every expense, every budget line, every executive perk. Pierce's vehicle lease allowance was right there. $60,000, annual, for a car. I took a screenshot, printed it, walked to his office. He was on a call, waved me in anyway without looking up, kept talking. Yeah, no, the ROI is there. We just need to get leaner on headcount. He was leaning back in his chair, feet almost up on his desk. Completely relaxed. Exactly. He hung up, smiled at me like we were old friends. Isabella, what's up? I held up my phone with the email on the screen. You're charging us for parking now? Just reserved spots. It's pretty standard. He shrugged, like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. I put the printed screenshot on his desk, right on top of his keyboard so he couldn't ignore it. You just expensed a $60,000 car lease. His smile thinned, just slightly. That's a company vehicle, that's different. How? I crossed my arms, waited. It's a business development tool. Clients notice what you drive. He pushed the paper aside without really looking at it. It's about perception. And charging your staff $12 a month is about what? Operational sustainability. He said it like he'd practiced in front of a mirror. Smooth, corporate, empty. Isabella, I get that change is uncomfortable, but we're tightening up across the board. Everyone's contributing. Everyone except you? The smile disappeared completely. I don't appreciate your tone. His voice went cold. And I don't appreciate being nickel and dimed while you're expensing luxury vehicles. Isabella, if you have a problem with company policy, you can take it up with HR. He picked up his phone, started scrolling, dismissing me without actually telling me to leave. I'm taking it up with you, you made the policy. And the policy stands. He looked up. His eyes were hard now. Is there anything else? I stood there for a second. Really looked at him. He thought he'd won. He thought this was over. No, I said quietly. Nothing else. I walked out. 3 people were standing in the hallway. They'd heard every word through Pierce's half-open door. One of them, David, the senior analyst who'd asked about the bonus targets, nodded at me. That was overdue, he said quietly, respect in his voice. I went back to my desk, opened a blank document, and started typing my resignation letter. I didn't submit the letter right away. I sat on it for 2 days, not because I was reconsidering, because I wanted to make sure I was thinking clearly. Saturday morning, my dad called. You sound tired, he said. He always could tell. I'm fine. You're not fine. What's going on? He wasn't asking. He was telling me to talk. I told him, all of it. The budget cuts, the parking fees, the $60,000 car. Pierce's condescending smile. My dad was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Do you remember when the Hendersons tried to leave without paying? I did. It was years ago. A couple who'd brought their car in for a transmission rebuild. Expensive job. Dad did the work. When they came to pick it up, they claimed he'd never given them a quote, that the price was unfair, that they shouldn't have to pay the full amount. My dad had listened, nodded, then walked outside and pulled the battery from their car. You can pick up the battery when you pay the invoice, he'd said calmly, and walked back inside. They paid. You built something they need, my dad said now, his voice steady and sure. They just don't know they need it yet. You've been doing them a favor this whole time by making it look easy. So what do? You stop doing them favors. Simple, direct, the way my dad always was. Monday morning, I submitted my 2 weeks' notice. The resignation email went out at 8:02 a.m. By 8:13, Pierce had responded. Understood. We'll arrange an exit interview. Please ensure all projects are documented before your departure. No, let's talk. No, what can we do? Just a checklist. HR reached out the next day. A woman named Kelly I'd worked with on onboarding 5 years ago. Isabella, I'm sorry to hear you're leaving. Is there anything we can do to change your mind? She sounded genuinely disappointed. Kelly was one of the good ones. No, I said. But thank you. Can I ask what prompted this? Her tone was careful, professional, but I could hear the real question underneath. I kept it professional. I don't think my work is valued here anymore. I'd rather go somewhere it is, she sighed, a long, tired sound. For what it's worth, a lot of people feel that way right now. You're the 4th person this month. I know. Pierce is going to regret this. She said it quietly, like she was talking to herself more than me. Maybe, she paused, then her voice dropped even lower. Isabella, between you and me, what happens to the environmental platform when you leave? That depends on whether Pierce sets up a transition plan. I kept my voice neutral. And if he doesn't, then they'll have a problem. I didn't elaborate, didn't need to. The rest of that week was strange. People kept stopping by my desk, asking if I was really leaving, asking where I was going. I didn't have an answer to the second question yet, but I knew I wasn't staying. On Wednesday, the IT guy came by, young kid, maybe 26. He looked nervous. Hey, so, Pierce wants me to take over the environmental platform, he said, fidgeting with his badge lanyard. Can you walk me through the admin access? Sure, I said, turning to face him. Do you have vendor credentials for the hosting service? He blinked, confusion spreading across his face. I thought it was hosted through the company account. No, it's through my vendor LLC, I explained calmly. Garrison and Hale pays me a stipend, but the infrastructure is licensed under my business. Oh, he looked even more confused now, lost. So, how do I access it? You don't, not unless I grant you permissions. And, will you? He was gripping his lanyard tighter now, starting to realize this was a bigger problem than Pierce had made it sound. I looked at him. He was a good guy. This wasn't his fault. That's a conversation Pierce needs to have with me, I said gently. Directly, he nodded slowly. He's not going to like that. There was worry in his voice. Probably not. Should I tell him? He looked like he really didn't want to be the messenger. You should definitely tell him, I gave him a small, reassuring smile. He left. I waited. An hour passed. Then, too, my phone didn't ring. I checked my email. Nothing from Pierce. He genuinely thought this was going to resolve itself. Thursday came and went. My second to last day. Still nothing. Friday, my last day, I came in at 9. There was a card on my desk. One of those generic sorry to see you go cards from the drugstore. 7 people had signed it. Pierce hadn't. At 3:00 p.m., Kelly came by with my exit paperwork. "You're sure about this?" she asked, setting the folder down but not letting go of it yet. "Completely. What are you going to do?" She was looking at me with something like concern, like she was losing a friend, not just processing an employee exit. "Consulting, I think. I've been getting inquiries." That was true. I'd updated my LinkedIn profile the day I gave notice. 3 companies had reached out already. Turns out people who can build compliance infrastructure are in demand. Kelly handed me the folder. "You'll get your last paycheck next Friday, and I'm supposed to collect your badge and laptop." I gave her the laptop, the badge, the phone, already wiped and in my drawer. I handed it over. She picked it up, paused, looked at me with sad eyes. "For what it's worth, Isabella, you deserved better than this." Her voice was soft, genuine. "I know." I walked out at 4:47 p.m. No exit interview, no handshake with Pierce, no farewell lunch. I just left. And that night at 11:38 p.m., I logged into the vendor dashboard and revoked all active administrative credentials except my own. I didn't delete anything. I didn't destroy data. I didn't sabotage a single file. I just took back control of the infrastructure I owned. Then I closed my laptop and went to bed. The following Thursday, Garrison and Hale had their quarterly eco-compliance assembly. The big one: state environmental regulators, potential clients, internal leadership. The whole dog-and-pony show Pierce had been prepping for weeks. I wasn't there, but the IT guy called me at 10:23 a.m. "Isabella, please pick up, please." His voice was panicked, breathless. "We're in the middle of the compliance presentation and everything's down. I can't access any of the environmental data. Pierce is losing his mind. The state board is here. Please call me back." I didn't answer. I was at a coffee shop, actually, meeting with one of those LinkedIn inquiries. A VP from a renewable energy firm who wanted to talk about building them a carbon tracking system. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. I ignored it. The VP, Catherine, noticed. She raised an eyebrow, amused. "You're popular today." "Former employer," I said, setting my phone face down on the table. "They're having some technical difficulties." "Not your problem anymore?" She was smiling slightly. "Not unless they want to pay me." I smiled back. She laughed. "I like your style." We finished the meeting. She offered me a contract on the spot. $75,000 for 6 months of work. I said yes. When I got to my car, I had 6 missed calls, 3 from the IT guy, 2 from a number I didn't recognize, 1 from Pierce. There were 4 voicemails. I played Pierce's first. "Isabella. It's Pierce Kensington." There was noise in the background. Voices. Someone was arguing. Look, we have a situation. The compliance platform isn't responding and I'm told you control the hosting account. I need you to call me back immediately. This is extremely urgent." His voice was tight, stressed. None of the smooth corporate confidence left. I deleted it. The next voicemail was from a woman I didn't know. "Miss Isabella, this is Diane Cho from Garrison and Hale's executive team." Her voice was professional, controlled, but urgent. "We're currently in a rather critical situation regarding data access, and we understand you may be able to assist. Please contact me at your earliest convenience." Polite, professional, desperate. I deleted that one too. The third was Pierce again. "Isabella, I don't know if you're getting these messages, but we have state regulators in the building and we cannot access the compliance database." His voice had an edge now. Anger creeping in. "I need you to restore access immediately. Call me back." Not a request anymore. A demand. Deleted. The 4th voicemail was the IT guy. "Isabella, I know you don't owe us anything." "I know that." He sounded like he was going to cry. Like he'd been yelled at, probably by Pierce. "But Pierce is about to have a breakdown and the regulators are threatening to leave, and if we don't submit compliance data by next week, we could lose our certification and please. If you can help, please call back." I felt bad for him, but not bad enough to work for free. I texted him back, kept it simple. I'm happy to discuss a consulting contract. My rate is $300/hour with a 10-hour minimum retainer. Have Pierce's office reach out if he'd like to proceed. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Pierce. I let it ring twice before I answered. Hello, I kept my voice neutral, professional. What the hell are you doing? His voice was shaking, actually shaking with rage. Hi, Pierce, how's the presentation going? I asked pleasantly. You locked us out. You locked us out of our own system. He was practically spitting the words. It's not your system, I said calmly, still using that pleasant tone. It's mine. The infrastructure is licensed through my vendor account. It always has been. You would have known that if you'd asked. This is sabotage. He said it like he was building a legal case, like that word had power. It's a contract dispute, I corrected, my voice still perfectly calm. I'm no longer an employee, so the access agreement we had is void. If you'd like to restore access, we can negotiate a new contract. We're in the middle of a presentation, with state regulators. He was shouting now. I could picture his face turning red. I know, sounds stressful. I kept my tone sympathetic, deliberately so. Isabella, his voice was dangerous now. You want my help, Pierce? I interrupted, dropping the pleasant tone. All business now, silence. Then you need to hire me, properly, with a contract and payment terms and all the things you should have arranged during my 2-week notice period. You can't just hold our data hostage. He was back to shouting. I'm not holding anything hostage, I said, enunciating each word clearly. The data is completely safe, backed up, secure, but access to it requires administrative credentials that only I have. If you want those credentials transferred, we'll need a formal consulting agreement. You're insane, he said it with disgust. No, I'm a business owner, I replied evenly. And the system you've been using for 5 years, that's my product. You've been leasing it, the lease is up. I'll sue you. It was a threat, but it sounded hollow. For what? Revoking access to my own infrastructure? I almost laughed. Good luck. I have the original vendor agreement, signed by Janet. It's airtight. I could hear voices in the background getting louder. Someone was saying, told us this data was ready, we've been here for 40 minutes. Someone else said, this is completely unacceptable. Pierce's voice came back. Quieter now. Defeated, what do you want? I already told you, $300 an hour, 10-hour minimum retainer, paid up front. I kept it simple. Clear. That's $3,000. Like he was testing whether I understood basic math. Correct. For what? He sounded genuinely baffled. For me to restore access today and provide emergency support until you find a permanent solution. That's extortion. Back to the accusations. That's my rate, I said patiently, like I was explaining something to a child. You want someone cheaper, feel free to call around, but I don't think you have time for that. More voices in the background, louder now. A woman's voice cut through. Mr. Kensington, we need a resolution in the next 5 minutes or we're leaving. Then a new voice came on the line. A woman, calm, controlled, in charge. Miss Isabella, this is Diane Cho. I'm the interim CFO. She sounded like someone who was used to cleaning up other people's messes. Pierce has stepped out for a moment. I could imagine Pierce being physically removed from his own crisis. Hi, Diane. I kept my tone respectful. She wasn't the problem. Let me be direct. What will it take to get this system operational in the next hour? No games, no threats, just business. A contract, payment. And an apology would be nice, but I won't hold my breath. I matched her directness. She almost laughed. A small sound, quickly stifled. What are your full terms? $300 per hour, 10-hour minimum to start. If you want a longer-term transition, we can negotiate that separately. But for today, I need payment confirmation before I restore access. Can you send me your vendor information? She was all business now. I can send you an invoice right now, pay it, and I'll have you up and running in 20 minutes. Hold on. I heard muffled conversation. She'd covered the phone with her hand. When she came back, send the invoice to this email address. I'll have accounting expedite payment. She gave me the email. I typed it into my phone. Done, I said. You'll have it in 2 minutes. And you'll restore access as soon as we pay? She wanted confirmation, a verbal contract. Immediately, thank you. She sounded genuinely grateful, then hung up. I pulled over to the side of the road, opened my laptop, generated an invoice for $3,000, sent it. 17 minutes later, I got a payment confirmation. I logged into the vendor dashboard and restored admin access. Then I called the IT guy. "You're back online," I said when he answered. "Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much." He was almost crying with relief. "Don't thank me. Thank Diane, she's the one who paid. He's not handling this well." The IT guy lowered his voice like Pierce might hear him. "That's not my problem," I said, not unkindly. "I know, thanks, Isabella." He hung up quickly. I smiled, started my car, and drove home. That weekend was quiet. I didn't gloat. I didn't post anything on social media. I didn't tell anyone except my mom, who laughed so hard she had to sit down. They really thought they could just not pay you. She was wiping her eyes, still chuckling. They thought I was replaceable. "Baby, you built the whole thing?" She shook her head, still smiling. "Yep." Sunday night, I got an email from Diane. "Miss Isabella, thank you for your rapid response on Thursday. We'd like to discuss bringing you on for a longer consulting engagement to facilitate a proper transition. Are you available to meet Monday morning?" I wrote back. "I'm available at 9 a.m. My standard rate is $300/hour. For a multi-month engagement, I require a contract with defined scope and payment terms." She replied in 10 minutes. "Understood. See you at 9. Monday morning, I walked into Garrison and Hale's office at 8:57 a.m. Kelly met me in the lobby. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes. "Thanks for coming in." She managed a small smile. "Of course." She led me to a conference room. Pierce was there, so was Diane, and a man in his 50s with a briefcase that looked like it cost more than my car, outside counsel. Pierce didn't make eye contact. He was staring at the table like it had personally offended him. Diane stood and shook my hand firmly. "Isabella, thank you for meeting with us." "Happy to," I shook back, matching her grip. The lawyer started. "Miss Isabella, I'm Charles Brennan, outside counsel for Garrison and Hale." He opened his briefcase, pulled out a legal pad. "We'd like to discuss the current situation regarding the environmental data platform." "Sure." I sat down. Relaxed, I had all the leverage here. "It's our understanding that you control the hosting infrastructure." He had a pen poised over the legal pad. "That's correct. And that you've revoked access for current employees." He was taking notes now. "Also correct. Can you explain the legal basis for that action?" He looked up, studying me. I slid a folder across the table. I'd prepared it over the weekend. Tab divided, professional. I brought copies of the original vendor agreement I signed with Janet Forrester in 2019. It clearly states that the infrastructure is licensed through my LLC, Emerson Data Solutions, and that Garrison and Hale is leasing access in exchange for the monthly stipend. When my employment ended, so did the lease. Brennan opened the folder, read for 30 seconds. His eyebrows went up slightly. "This was never updated?" He looked genuinely surprised. "No," he looked at Pierce. His expression was the lawyer equivalent of "You've got to be kidding me." "Did you know about this arrangement?" His tone was sharp, accusatory. Pierce's jaw tightened. He still wasn't looking at anyone. "I was never informed." "It's in the finance files," I said calmly, addressing Brennan, not Pierce. "Under vendor services, I've been invoicing the same way for 5 years, every month, same line item." Diane leaned forward. "Why didn't this come up during your exit process?" She wasn't angry, just genuinely trying to understand where the process broke down. "Pierce never asked," I said simply. "The IT department was told to take over, but no one ever contacted me about transferring credentials or setting up a new hosting account." Brennan closed the folder, looked at Diane, then at me. He was calculating something. "What are you proposing?" He set down his pen, ready to negotiate. "A 3-month consulting contract, $50,000. During that time, I'll train a replacement administrator, transfer all credentials, help you set up your own vendor account, and ensure full operational continuity. After 3 months, you'll own the admin access outright, and I'll be completely out of the picture." Pierce finally spoke. His head snapped up. $50,000? He said it like I'd asked for a kidney. I turned to look at him directly for the first time since I'd entered the room. "You were paying me $72,000 a year as an employee, plus the vendor stipend. This is a bargain." I kept my voice level. "Factual." This is extortion. He was gripping the arms of his chair. No, I said, still calm. Extortion is illegal. This is freelancing. You need a service. I'm offering to provide it. At market rate? Market rate for holding our data hostage. His voice was bitter. Angry, Diane held up a hand. Pierce, can I speak with you outside? It wasn't a question. It was an order. They left. Brennan stayed, so did Kelly. The lawyer looked at me with something that might have been respect, maybe amusement. You planned this, he said, not accusatory, almost admiring. I prepared for it, I corrected. There's a difference. Most people don't set up infrastructure under their own business entity. He was studying me like I was an interesting case study. Most companies have IT departments that can handle vendor relationships. When I started here, they didn't, so I filled the gap, and no one ever changed the arrangement. Did you ever suggest changing it? He was testing me now, looking for liability. I mentioned it to Janet once. She said if it wasn't broken, don't fix it. I shrugged. She trusted me. And Pierce? He already knew the answer. Pierce never asked how anything worked. He just assumed it would keep working. I let that hang in the air. Kelly made a small sound, almost a laugh, quickly covered it with a cough. 5 minutes later, they came back. Diane sat down, composed. Pierce stayed standing near the door, his arms crossed defensively. We accept your terms, Diane said, looking me in the eye. 50,000 for 3 months, but we need a few conditions. I'm listening. I folded my hands on the table. We need the system operational and stable immediately. We need weekly progress reports, and we need a backup administrator trained within the first month in case anything happens to you. She was counting on her fingers, organized, professional. Done, I said without hesitation. Anything else? Yes, she glanced at Pierce. We need you to sign an NDA regarding the circumstances of your departure and this agreement. So Pierce doesn't look bad? I said it flatly. Let the implications sit there. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. I'll sign an NDA on the consulting work itself, but I'm not signing anything that prevents me from giving an honest reference about my employment here if someone asks. That's fair, Diane said immediately, before Pierce could object. Pierce made a sound, like he'd been punched. That's not Pierce. Diane's voice was sharp, final. She turned to look at him fully. This is the deal. Take it or spend 6 months rebuilding everything from scratch. He shut up. His face was red. Brennan pulled out a contract from his briefcase. I'll have this drafted by end of day. Can you start tomorrow? I can start today, I said, leaning back in my chair. But I need the contract signed and the first payment processed before I begin training anyone. Agreed. He nodded, making a note. We shook hands. I looked at Pierce one last time. He was staring at the wall, his jaw clenched so tight I thought he might break a tooth. Anything you want to add? I asked him, keeping my voice pleasant. He didn't respond, didn't even look at me. Great, I said, standing up. Looking forward to working with you all. The contract was signed by 3 p.m. that afternoon. Payment hit my account the next morning. I showed up Wednesday and started training. The IT guy almost cried with relief when I walked in. I thought I was going to get fired, he said, meeting me at the door to the server room. He looked like he hadn't slept. You didn't do anything wrong? I set my laptop bag down. I know, but Pierce was acting like it was my fault. His hands were shaking slightly as he unlocked the door. Pierce acts like everything is someone else's fault. I gave him a reassuring smile. Yeah, he laughed weakly, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. I'm starting to notice that. Over the next 3 months, I trained him and 2 other IT staffers on every component of the system. I documented everything, every script, every integration, every security protocol. I helped them set up a proper company vendor account with detailed instructions. I transferred the hosting license with full documentation. I did the job right, because that's who I am. Pierce barely spoke to me the entire time. He'd pass me in the hallway and look the other way, his jaw tight. In meetings, he'd address everyone except me, his eyes sliding past me like I wasn't there. When I sent him progress reports, he wouldn't respond. Diane would, usually within an hour. Fine by me. The rest of the staff, though, they were different. David from Analytics brought me coffee one morning. Set it on my desk with a knowing smile. I heard what happened, he said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. With the compliance meeting. Yeah, everyone heard. Pierce tried to blame it, but Diane shut him down in front of the whole executive team. He was grinning now. Word is she told the board exactly what happened. That you'd left, he didn't transition anything, and the whole thing almost cost us our environmental certification. Interesting. I took a sip of the coffee. Perfect, the way I liked it. It gets better. Apparently 3 board members asked why he approved a $60,000 car allowance for himself, but didn't have budget to retain critical infrastructure staff. David was clearly enjoying this. I smiled. How'd he answer that? He didn't. He just said he'd misjudged the situation. David made air quotes, his voice dripping with sarcasm. That's one way to put it. Sarah from accounting stopped by my desk a week later. She looked different, happier. I'm putting in my notice, she said, barely containing her excitement. Where are you going? I was genuinely happy for her. Competitor, 20% raise. And they're paying for my certification. She was practically glowing. Good for you. Thanks. She paused, leaning against my desk. You know what the best part is? Pierce asked me to stay. Offered me a performance bonus if I committed to another year. What'd you say? I already knew. I could see it in her face. I asked if the bonus was guaranteed or theoretical. He said it depended on departmental targets. She grinned triumphantly. So I said no thanks. He looked so confused, like he couldn't understand why I wouldn't trust him. By the end of my 3 months, 7 more people had left. The brain drain was real, and Pierce was drowning. When my contract ended, Garrison and Hale offered to bring me back full-time. The offer came from Diane, not Pierce. We met in her office. She'd taken over the COO suite. We'd love to have you permanently, she said, her hands folded on her desk. Professional but warm, name your price. I appreciated that, but I said no. I've got 3 other clients now, I told her honestly. All of them paying better, all of them treating me like the expert I am. I'm not interested in coming back. She nodded slowly, understanding. I understand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about how this went down. It's not your fault, and I meant it. It's my company now, so it kind of is. She smiled ruefully. Pierce is being transitioned out, by the way. Really? I tried to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. The board lost confidence after the compliance incident, and the staff turnover numbers. She pulled up something on her computer. And the $60,000 car thing didn't help. Turns out the board didn't actually approve that. He'd categorized it under business development without specifics. Interesting. He'll be gone by the end of the quarter. We're calling it a mutual separation. Her tone made it clear it was anything but mutual. Good luck finding his replacement. Actually, Diane said, leaning back in her chair, I'm taking the COO role permanently. We're bringing in someone with actual operational experience to run this department. Someone who understands that infrastructure matters. Sounds like a good plan. We shook hands. I walked out of that building for the last time feeling lighter than I had in months. A year later, I'm running my own consulting firm full-time. I've got 6 employees, 12 active clients. Revenue that makes my old salary look like pocket change. I built something real. And I did it because Pierce Kensington thought I was a line item he could cut to make his budget look better. He never asked what I did. He never asked how the system worked. He never asked what would happen if I left. He just assumed someone else could figure it out. That's the mistake a lot of managers make. They see people who do quiet, technical, foundational work and think they're replaceable because that work is invisible. But invisible doesn't mean unimportant. It means you don't notice it until it's gone. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't sabotage anyone. I didn't break a single rule. I just stopped giving away something valuable for free. The infrastructure I built was mine, legally, ethically, completely. And when Pierce tried to take it for granted, the consequences taught him a lesson I couldn't have. Here's what I wish someone had told me earlier in my career. You don't have to be loud to have leverage. You don't have to make threats. You just have to know what you're worth. And be willing to walk away if someone else doesn't. Pierce saw me as a cost. My clients see me as an asset. That's the difference between a bad manager and a good one. And that difference, it cost Pierce his job, cost Garrison and Hale 7 figures in turnover and lost productivity, and cost them their reputation with the State Environmental Board. All because he wouldn't spend $3,000 to keep me around for one emergency. The math on that is pretty simple. But then again, Pierce never was good at math. He was good at spreadsheets, at buzzwords, at making cuts that looked good on paper. He just wasn't good at understanding what actually made the company run. And that's the thing about infrastructure. It's invisible until it isn't. It's replaceable until you try. And the people who build it, we're expensive for a reason. If this story made you feel something, hit that subscribe button. We're building something here at Payback Office, and every single one of you is part of it. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been the person holding the keys to something critical? What happened when people realized it? Did they try to lowball you? Did they learn their lesson? I read every single one, and some of your stories might end up in future episodes. I'm Isabella, and I'll see you in the next one.